Beating NIDUS for noobs. This video is going to act as guidance for anyone that's getting started in this game. Guidance being a specific order of bosses that you would take in order to have the easiest time reaching the end consistently. I'll provide a couple paths you can take while voicing over my gameplay and how I would usually go about handling each of the bosses and their respective realms. I have beaten this game a few times before, but for the sake of the intended audience of this guide, I'll be playing the game on the normal difficulty, which is delicate. Also, for reasons that I can't really chalk up other than my ADHD and complete lack of composure, there's going to be plenty of times in this video where it looks like I either fail a setup, frantically click close to the flower without anything happening, or just straight up dash into enemies out of panic. While I am working on getting through the no-hit mode, I think by looking at my mistakes you'll find it more digestible in terms of what to avoid. Lastly, there's going to be a few things that I can't explain in ways that catch up with what's happening in the gameplay, so for that I'll be making a few short pauses. And for those who would rather just watch the gameplay without stopping, I'll leave timestamps for you as well. Something that I've picked up on by watching the majority of people play this part of the game is that you need to mark every single enemy on the screen before killing it. Now, while this does apply for a good chunk of the enemies throughout the entire game, this introduction is supposed to act as a reminder that the game is very flower-centric. It makes sense, given that the area you're restricted to move in with the flower, along with the area you're restricted to move in with the wasp, is basically a big circle. Judging by which half of the radius you're in after you finish a stage, the game will spawn the enemies in different places in relation to said position, rather than just having them spawn all around the center if you were in the middle yourself. These enemies are already designed to move towards you, so why not let the petal burst deal with most of them, right? If you don't make use of all the fireflies that appear after each stage, then this probably won't be as big of an issue. However, if you do find yourself collecting them, then it definitely helps to stay in the center. There's plenty of utility when it comes to playing with essence, and having a point in the map to have it all come together in an even fashion is always going to be more rewarding. Here's a visual to show, from personal experience, how manageable each of the bosses can be as you progress through the game. The shaded areas are to separate which ones are interchangeable in terms of difficulty. I should put the disclaimer that this is assuming you don't play through the stages with your essence and multiplier in mind, which can drastically change the tide of a majority of these boss fights. So drastic in fact that I would actually put Hoplite, the one on the far left, on the right. With the order being how it is though, it's important to know why I chose it to be this way. Fighting these bosses on the right without the preparation is going to be more forgiving than it first appears to be. Granted, Tetrad has stages that you can't cheese, but the movement and attacks stay relatively mild and predictable with little practice. The projectiles that you'll see across the game are going to be really numerous in the fight with Harbinger, but you'll soon get the gist of turning them into essence by clicking them with the wasp. This is going to be something that both bosses will give you time to do and think out more than the other bosses on the left. Unlike the ones on the right, going into these bosses late stage is going to be really punishing if you're not well equipped. They have their own moments where they give you time to breathe and make use of any essence you collected, but these windows are way smaller than of the two previously mentioned. Unless you get good at making quick blade shots with the flower, these bosses won't be over for a while. These bosses have ways to deny you any reasonable amount of time to make shots with the flower, and will actually just reduce your toolkit down to clicking with the wasp. With Banshee, it's especially easy to lose control, as I'll give you a bit of a demonstration later. I hope that you're able to read which enemies I choose to prioritize. Spawner insects, which include beetle spawners and fast-moving enemies, are the ones that I choose to take out first. It cuts down on time when having to deal with them later. Rushing to collect most of the essence is going to deny the regular spawner insects the ability to eat one and crap out a bunch of worms. They actually move towards the wasp if it has any essence on hand, and will steal any that it has. If they're marked, however, they ignore essence altogether and focus on the flower. I'm sure you've already noticed, but performing a bloom dash will not only make a small explosion around the wasp at the end, but it will also make a small explosion around the flower. Don't rely on this mechanic to deal with worms or golden beetles, as they have different requirements for being damaged and won't typically die from a bloom dash explosion alone. If you ever decide to play with a controller and a mouse, for the flower and wasp respectively, then you'll definitely get used to balancing the camera when blooming and get to enjoy performing these rapid blade shots. I wouldn't really recommend any other way to play, really. Joystick for precision and mouse for responsiveness. On the topic of making blade shots, I thought I'd take this time to explain what exactly the upgrades do, as they go completely unexplained for reasons that I'm not really sure. This is solely going to cover how blade shots are affected, while the other parts of upgrades will probably be for another video entirely. Flower upgrades will increase the blade power incrementally, as depicted by increased visual intensity. Wasp upgrades will increase the amount of blades by 1, base amount being 3, as well as moderately increasing the spread for each upgrade. I'd say anything past a level 2 wasp is just demanding that you spray and pray with how much spread there is. Though, this is assuming that you'll even use blade shots at this point, which you probably won't be doing nearly as much. Here you'll just see how much use you can get out of the petal burst, along with the shockwaves from the multiplier. I'd say all the functionality from the multiplier deserves that separate video as well. I had bad judgment when going into this, and as a result, the wasp didn't have enough health to break the last key. What I would usually do is rest here at the bottom to prime a spray near the back of the line, since the petal burst will clip through the bottom at the very start. Instead, you'll see me trying to improvise a 2 birds with 1 stone situation. I only managed to cheese out 1 from the line this way, although you can do it up to 4. You can see how this boss fight can get out of hand really quickly. I'd say there are more times during the average Banshee fight where you're going to have to skip out on some windows that you think you have because of how the workers sit off screen, ready to charge at you. Really making good use of the Bloomdash explosion to take care of these triangle insects. I don't really know what they're called, and none of the non-boss enemies are given any names in the game, so I've been making some stuff up. This is the one boss that you can't really do anything to skip the individual stages, but this comes with the advantage of it being the most predictable in the entire game, with your opportunities for dodging attacks being virtually the same in their Exalted form. Despite being the most predictable, I still tend to get hit out of panic, as you can see. Though in the end, it doesn't matter that much because of how much essence this fight lets you work with. There's going to be something happening that's rather unnoticeable just by looking at me play, but I'm going to explain it here just so it's easier to recognize. When you go to make a blade shot, your first thought is to probably hold down the input for the wasp and slowly drag the wasp behind the core for each shot. While this would make the most sense visually, there's a disconnect between your pointer position and the wasp's position for a reason. For each blade shot, the wasp might look like it's bouncing off the side opposite to where the shot is being aimed, but this is only an illusion. It's actually being teleported to the opposite side, while the area to trigger the shot itself is actually another circle that's tight around the core. This way, you don't have to pixel hunt for the right side of the circle while trying to balance the camera at the same time. However, what side the wasp is on is important in telling where the flower will be bounced to. It will be opposite to the side the wasp is on. In a very subtle chain of events, the camera will likely help in bringing the wasp slightly in front of the core, which would bounce the flower backwards. This is counteracted from the small speed boost that's given by a touch of the wasp on the core, which, if you're holding the ability button for Bloom, will boost you in the direction you are aiming in. You can reach the vulnerable parts of these thorned flower enemies with petal burst or blade shots, since these phase through said thorns. This is personally my favorite boss to face, especially in Exalted form. It might look overwhelming, but the adrenaline that's built up to this point will help you convert the majority of these projectiles into essence. It will also allow you to make those split-second decisions that make this boss feel the most satisfying compared to the others, at least in my time playing the game. I just wanted to let y'all know that I'm giving you a break here until I beat Zenith, to let you absorb what's about to unfold. It's going to be a combination of all the subtleties that I've covered so far, along with my composure being at its lowest here. I hope you can learn something from what you're going to see, since there's nothing I can really say at this point that would serve as better advice than to stay as calm and focused as you can be. Enjoy! I took way longer than I should have on this video, and this recording is actually my second attempt at beating the game on Delicate. ADHD is a disability, I swear. Anyway, there's plenty of nuanced mechanics that go unexplained in this game, more than I covered in this video. With that being said, I've decided that I'm going to pile it all together in a huge critique project. Stay tuned for that if you love this game as much as I do. See ya.